introduce
my
yourself?
name is Sarah Cook. I'm a researcher at Freedom House, focusing on East Asia and also on internet. And I had, well, two quick questions. One relates to the issue of censorship on a topic like this. And we see, I mean, I see some of the censorship directives that are leaked and so forth that address the environment. And I guess I wanted to ask you and also Ms. Chan, what are the lines? I mean, is there a certain consistency that you see, that there are certain things that obviously are very important to be and are available to the public? Are there other things, whether, and to the extent that you can, and you can answer this, of course, you know, is it that if it touches on a state-owned enterprise or of a certain size, that triggers, say, maybe some directives to hush something? Is it mostly related to the local government's relationship to a certain business? Is it related to a particular leader having ties? So just if in the broadest strokes you were able to identify, I guess, you know, I know it's a very gray and blurry line, you know, where that wire is tripped. So that was the first question. I guess my second question relates to more outside of China, and perhaps Ms. Chan would be more well-equipped to answer this. Besides the companies themselves, I think one of the things we've seen are certain asset management funds. I mean, we've seen this in other countries, but I think I've seen it especially increasingly with some of these technology issues with regards to China, really looking at what some of the companies are investing, you know, they're investing in, what those companies are doing. So there was a case with regards to Cisco, where there have been 2 lawsuits filed against Cisco, one by human rights democracy activists, one by someone representing Falun Gong practitioners, about Cisco selling surveillance technologies that then allegedly led to people's arrest because of what they were doing online. And there was an asset management fund in Boston that, after some of these revelations came out, actually, you know, changed its investments in Cisco. And I think especially for us as, you know, Americans who have pension funds and things like that, I guess my question would be, have you seen other examples of that? Is there more that, you know, ordinary Americans can do from that perspective, even if we're not personally investing in certain companies, to try to encourage, I guess, people to pay attention to who the companies are on these lists, not just as consumers, but also potentially as investors? So I guess those would be my 2 questions, one inside China, one outside of China. Thank you very much.
Thanks, and we'll take one more. Mei Ling, I'll take one more question from over here, and then we'll let you answer them together.
Yeah. My name is Abiola Okwechi. I'm with the Business and Human Rights Resource Center. My question relates to China in Africa, or more appropriately, Chinese companies in Africa. And I'm wondering about the effect that these companies have. Well, as I'm sure everyone knows, most of the countries in Africa have very weak regulatory frameworks. So I'm wondering, how practical is it for African NGOs to expect the Chinese government to regulate how their companies operate in Africa? And I'm asking this because the balance of power rests more with China being stronger than, you know, most of these African countries. So is it practical for us to expect that the Chinese government will begin to regulate how those companies operate in Africa?
Yeah.
You should be first, and I come back.
Okay. I thank you for the question, and I just say that our, you know, the line that we're towing on sometimes could be a bit thin, and every day it's some sort of balancing game. That part is brings, I think, the most agony. You know, you working hard is not a problem, but every day try to figure out where the lines are and things, and they are there. So we have some space, but it's not kind of very certain in some cases. But still, there are some space. So putting into our context, we're based there. We have to, you know, make our work, try to continue to work. Of course, we have bottom line. At the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. But other than that, we just try to work in a more kind of try to see. There's a very big wall there, but certain part probably, you know, you can butt your head all the time, but certain part you can press and it could open. So that's kind of something that we are looking for. So we're not talking about either big ones or smaller ones. We're going to stay away from some certain type of companies. 90,000 records, they are just listed there, you know, side by side. Some big and small, local and foreign, everything. You know, everyone kind of break our law. We just list them there. It's basically a work to level the playing ground. I think that's what we're talking about. And your question about, the investors, I think it's tremendously important because, we can reach out, we can reach those cotton mills, we can reach those dye factories, we can reach those PCB, circuit board factories, battery factories through supply chain because they are part of this fast consumer products manufacturers. So supply chain work can tackle them. But those big energy firms, those mining firms, we cannot reach them through this. It's too far beyond. And how do we influence them? I think green banking eventually will be helpful. And green investment will be helpful. With that in mind, we actually work together with a local stockbroker, security firm, to work out a list of listed companies in our country. So type in the ticker code of any company listed in our country and in Hong Kong. You will get their records out right away. So it's coming in about several months of time. I hope we can have the prototype there, and I encourage you to take a look at that.
I have a case I would like to refer you in relation to access the investment overseas. That is one Norwegian pension fund that the international watchdog, I think it's the Earthright International that make the report on how the Norwegian pension fund being used in Burma that relates to a lot of violation of human rights. And I'm sure that a lot of watchdogs internationally can point that out and pressure both governments and the local NGOs also support that. I think pressure from all sides will help to move the case to be investigated. In relation to my colleague that relate to NGOs in Africa, I think you know better than me, but from my experience that the government, like our president Hu Jintao actually, and also Premier Wen, speak openly that yes, we do care about the companies, our Chinese companies overseas, how they behave. The problem is really when the order going down the line, decentralized mechanisms that work and also play into the whole game, that I think there are a lot of things that our leaders would not know. And that is through NGOs' experiences and through media that they know. And through watchdog, we can actually help to make those cases known to go upwards.
It doesn't do China a good service, when you have all these Chinese companies, not doing the things in following the social responsibility code of conduct. And I would say that at this moment, my organization focuses about their behavior in China, but we do have some of the partners, who kind of try to monitor some of their performance outside China, mainly in Southeastern Asian area, because it's kind of closer. It's easy to. Africa is still a bit far. Our resources somewhat cannot cover that. But I have to say, if they don't even treat Chinese people fairly, and how could you expect them to do that in Africa or in Indonesia or in Latin America? So it's very important, I think for us to play this inside out, outside in. We try to work together. You check them there, but we gonna check them. Through all this engagement, they gradually get used to this. They gradually understand. They need to build up a sense of accountability, either inside China or eventually many of them gonna go global. And now I think many of them started feeling this, and it's no longer a taboo, at least in our country, to talk about the impact of them in Africa, in Latin America. It used to be, just like human rights. But now it's no longer like that. So thanks to all the efforts, of the grassroots organizations and international organizations. I want to, I think it reminds me a little bit about your question about the, how do we work together? I think today we have a globalized economy. All the business, they are moving global, in a wild way, layers upon layers of outsource, whatever which is not considered as clean or handy or whatever, they got outsourced to someone else. And they're gonna find the weak point in the world and try to, it's not like a moral kind of a problem, but more like it's just cheaper to do it that way. So they move global, but our environmental monitoring is just very piecemeal, very local. And today, I think we do need to build up a network. I think this information provides us an opportunity. Now we are working that in China, but some of them approach me saying, if you continue to do this, you drive our costs by 7% or even 12%. I'm going to have to move to Vietnam or Indonesia or Bangladesh. I say, come on, you could do that. But at the end of the day, that's wrong, and that's wrong. And those other parts, they also need the local awareness. The business investment going to be good to them, do them good, but this pollution, they definitely don't want to follow our steps, on this, with whole generation sacrifice, and even the future generation pay for all this toxics in our lakes and rivers. They don't want to follow this. So today, I would propose, challenge all of you to try to think about how to build up this more globalized network.
And just on that, I know there are others who want to ask questions too, but if I may, listening to you, you used an expression a few minutes ago that, the Walmarts and the Apples, they set the rules. And what about the framework now of Professor John Ruggie and his team, the protect, respect, remedy, and the guiding principles that corporations have to respect all human rights, which would include rights to food, safe water, so it would cut across if there are those in the supply chain who, to save costs, are endangering health and safety, for example. Are you cross-referencing to that agenda?
Yeah, I think we are in some way just not directly. They try to involve us into some of these discussions. I should say we stretch it a bit thin. Sometimes I missed there's a Milwaukee kind of meeting, but I wouldn't be able to go, and I missed that. But I really, I believe all this will be tremendously helpful. At the end of the day, we're talking about a different type of world economy. Before it's kind of local made and everyone knows about this. I buy from there. I live nearby. If you do some bad things, I know that. But now, it's all over. I never know in the market. I never know where does it come from. What kind of impact does all this have? And the life cycle of all these gadgets and apparels is all getting so short. It's not out of blue. Somewhere this whole metal processing is going on, this mining is going on, this kind of all this dyeing and finishing are going on. It's dirty, it's still somewhere. And now how do we, bring all this back? Connecting that, I think information is the way to eventually bring this back, and we need to tackle the total value chain. In that life cycle and value chain, I think the leading corporate citizens recognize this, but how soon they're going to move toward this depends on how much the stakeholders going to care about this. Because at the end of the day, every forum they say, my heart is green. It's all coming from here. But in reality, they are, all these investors kind of making a lot of pressure on them. It's short-termism, unless there are enough, all this care coming from the stakeholders, it won't happen. So it's very important to bring up that public concern, and it's very important for public to express. It's very important.